Hi, this is Mitchell Hudson again, and I'm going to talk about using jQuery today. jQuery is a JavaScript library that simplifies your working with JavaScript. It's great for working with HTML. It allows you to access any element in the DOM very easily and provides a lot of helper functions that cover all of the basic tasks that you might want to perform with JavaScript in the context of creating HTML pages. So I recommend jQuery. It's a really great library. There's a lot of other libraries that are similar, and they work in a similar manner. And once you understand jQuery, it will be pretty easy to pick up the other libraries. jQuery is used by a lot of the top websites. I think Apple uses it on their website, and a lot of other places use it. So anyway, here I am. I've created a folder called Example Class 2, and I've created a basic HTML page here called Example 1. Okay, so that's my starting thing. Let me open this in Coda. So there's my basic HTML page. I'll give it a title. I'll call it Example 1 jQuery, and I'll save it. Okay. Our first step is to go get the jQuery file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my web browser here, and you can see I have jQuery already open in my web browser. And you can see up at the top, I'm at jQuery.com, okay? And they have a lot of information on their website. You can download documentation, tutorials, etc., right? On the home page, you can actually just download jQuery here. And there's actually two options. You can click on this little box there to select which option you want. The first one is the production version of jQuery. This is compressed or minified. And so the file size is a lot smaller. It's only 31 kilobytes. The development version is 229 kilobytes, so it's a lot larger. This version includes a lot of comments, and it's uncompressed, so it's easy to edit and look at. So if you need to modify the jQuery file, which you really shouldn't have to do anyway, you can get the second one. I'm actually going to get the first one because that's the one that you'd use most often. As a matter of fact, I've never used the second one. I never had any need for it. And then I'll click the download button. It's a little funny since the jQuery file is just plain text. My browser wants to open it in the browser window. So that's a little odd. This is actually all of the jQuery code here. We're looking right at it. I'm going to save this. I'll just do Command S, or you could choose, File, Save Page As. And what I'll do is I'll save this file as jQuery 1.6.1 min.js, and I'll put it into the example class 2 folder. And that's the same folder where my example HTML file is at. So I'll save it there. I'm actually going to copy the name here because we'll need that in a moment. So if I copy it, I won't have to write it again. Okay, so there's my files, and they're both in the folder together. There's my jQuery file, and there's my HTML file. So the first step to using jQuery is to import the file. I'll use the script tag. I'll use the type attribute. I'll add the type attribute and set it to text JavaScript. And then I'll use the source attribute, and I'll paste the file name of my jQuery file. Okay? And then I'll close off my script tag and save. And if you remember from the previous tutorial, I showed you how to write a simple JavaScript file and import that file using the script tag and the source attribute. And we're basically doing the same thing here. The only difference is that we didn't make this file ourselves. Someone else wrote this one. But otherwise, it's exactly the same process. Okay? So now you're all set. You got jQuery imported. So the next step is to use jQuery. And there's a lot to jQuery, so right here we'll just do a very basic exercise with jQuery just to see how it works and to make sure that it's working. Okay? So what I'd like to do is I'd like to add some extra JavaScript to what I'm doing here. We probably should not modify the jQuery file itself. So instead of adding new script to this file, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a second script tag that will be type text JavaScript. And instead of importing a file or a JavaScript file, I'll just type my JavaScript inside the script tag. Okay? So this JavaScript tag will be read first, and the browser will import this file. And then the browser is going to read this script tag, and I'll type all of my JavaScript code in here. Okay? So jQuery is very simple. Once we've imported it, we can begin using it. jQuery itself, the jQuery object, the programming object that represents jQuery, is represented by the $sign. Okay, so anytime you use the $sign, you're talking about jQuery. It's sort of a shortcut, a short way to write the name. Okay, and the first thing that we probably want to do is we want to set up an event that will be triggered when the browser finishes loading the HTML page. This is a very basic process that we'll do with JavaScript and jQuery a lot. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in jQuery, and then I'll type in the parentheses, and I'll put the document object inside here. So basically, when I type the $sign in the parentheses, I include an element inside the parentheses that I want jQuery to work with. In this case, I want jQuery to work with the document. Okay? The document represents the entire HTML document. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use one of jQuery's helper methods called ready. Okay, so I type in ready and parentheses. Now, the ready method calls on a function. So whenever the document loads and it's ready, the ready method here will execute the function that we put inside the parentheses here. So what we're doing is basically passing this function to ready that we type in inside the parentheses here, passing it to ready, and then when the ready event occurs, that means the document's loaded, then the function inside the parentheses is going to be executed. So I'll type in the keyword function, followed by the parentheses and the curly brackets. And then I'll type in all of my code within these curly brackets here. So just as a test, I'll type in alert, and then I'll say, hello jQuery. Okay, so there's my basic, jQuery code there, and if my jQuery is working correctly, the document should load, and when it's done loading, it should open the alert dialog box and print out hello jQuery. Okay, I'll save that, and I'll preview it here in Coda. Oh, my document loads, and then I got the hello jQuery message. Okay, so it seems to be working. Okay, usually when I nest these functions, and you find yourself doing this a lot with JavaScript and jQuery, especially when you're using jQuery, I should say, like writing all this on one line starts to get a little confusing with all the special characters. What I like to do is I like to add a line return between the curly brackets of the function. So if I put the cursor in between here and then add a line return, then I'll type the code within this function inside the line return. So, for example, I'd type in alert and, hello or something. Okay, so there's our JavaScript, a jQuery basic lesson there. That's how you get jQuery working on your page. Here's a note. When the HTML is read by the browser reads the script tags in order. Okay, so what's going to happen here is it's going to read the jQuery import script tag first, and then it's going to read the script tag here that follows it. These need to be in this order. In order for us to use the jQuery object and its extra helper methods, we need to load jQuery first, because if it isn't loaded, then the browser will complain that this object doesn't exist, okay? Because it hasn't been loaded yet. So we always have to have the import jQuery first before we try and use it, okay? So that means it has to go above the other one. Basically, JavaScript, in the browser is reading these lines one at a time and then doing the JavaScript or executing the JavaScript as it finds it. So, it's got to read this one first, execute all the JavaScript in this file to set up the jQuery object, and then then it moves on to this script tag, and then it sets up our ready event, and the jQuery object is working correctly, and so that works, right? Okay, so there's your basic lesson on jQuery.